Actually, you know what, Chris, you might have taken over host.
Nope, I'm still
Oh, no,
co.
you're still co-host. Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. I'm David. Today, we're going to be talking about creating your first talk. I put CFP in the description, but really a CFP is just creating a proposal for a talk that you'd like to do at a conference. Full disclosure, we are recording this meeting. A couple little community bits before we get going. Please keep yourself muted unless you're talking. If you do talk, just introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and then you can ask your question, or you can ask questions in the chat as we're going. I figure we'll probably have a lot of dialogue. I have slides, but the slides are fairly brief. And what we're going to be doing is actually going through as much as we can, creating a talk for OpenSearchCon, but this applies to just about any conference you might want to submit to. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get going. A little background on me. My name's David. I am a senior developer advocate working on open source OpenSearch at AWS. I've been doing advocacy for about a little over a year now. I've given 15 talks in person, which feels like it should be higher than that, but I generally try to only go about once a month. So regardless, super happy to have you all here. Also hope you all are looking forward to submitting CFPs for OpenSearchCon because we've only got a couple more days. Actually, yeah, literally it is this Friday, which is, I believe, the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 3 more days. So with that, we're going to start talking about creating your first talk. So the first step to creating your first talk, for a conference is you need to know what you're trying to talk about. And there's a lot that goes into that, actually. There's what do you want to talk about? That for me, a lot of times I'll take from like personal experiences and then roll those into talks. So a really great example of this is like I had worked at a company where we had probably about 1,000 networked devices. Sorry, network devices, different from networked devices. And we had this issue where we would log in whenever there was an issue. We'd log into each device individually and try and figure out what was going on. And it was a nightmare. We had like 12 people on our team. And we had one point where me and a coworker spent 5 hours logging into different devices, reading the log lines, taking notes, all to realize that, oh, hey, these logs happen every Tuesday at like 5 p.m. and every Saturday at midnight. Well, come to find out there was a security group doing scans on us. And if we had had all of our stuff in one place, we could have automatically said, hey, look, there's the 2 times, it's centralized. And this is something that I pulled together and put into a talk that I did internally for my company. I was like, hey, look, this is a problem. And look, there's a solution out there that can help us with this problem. So that's a really great place to pull topics from is your experience, things that you've challenged, because the chances are someone else is also dealing with that same thing. So another really great place to pull topics from is places where you have deep experience, that maybe other people won't. Most of you are familiar with OpenSearch by now. You might have experienced some weird pattern in OpenSearch and been like, why is that? And you dove deep and you were like, oh, look at this. This is like how I can leverage these internal APIs, or this is how OpenSearch's storage layer works. That's something that's really deep that a lot of people might be interested in, especially if they're looking to extend OpenSearch or if they're looking to run OpenSearch and get the most performance out of it. Then also one of the really great ones that I've seen is doing something very weird that just makes people curious. There's a guy, Jeffrey Huntley, who is on Twitter, and one of his talks, he scraped every single NFT that he could find on, a particular blockchain and hosted them all on a website, just kind of as a like, LOL, I just stole all your NFTs. Something that's not practical. It's silly, but it got a lot of interest because people were like, wow, yeah, how much do you actually own if someone can just go scrape the entire thing and provide them on their own website? So that's a really great way to look at getting a topic. Another awesome thing you can do is reach out to the conference host. If you know the conference host or you can find an email for them, send an email. Say, hey, what could you guys use presentations on? I did this recently with Haystack, which is a search relevance conference. I was like, hey, what do you guys need presentations on? Like, and come to find out, they had a lot of missing beginner content. As well, just for those who are wondering, OpenSearch only has 4 advanced talks currently. So if you do have an advanced talk, I will say you have an advantage. So those are some of the different ways you can look at, picking a topic and then, figuring out what to actually write about. Talking about writing, we're going to get into writing your abstract. So for this, I'm actually going to dive in a little bit to we're going to write an abstract while we're talking, which good luck. I'm terrible at doing 2 things at once. But abstracts have, probably 3 primary parts, right? You've got the hook, which is what draws people in. You have the body, which is what you'll cover. And then what I'm calling the finisher, which is what they can expect to get out of it, So with that, maybe we're taking my, networking example that I had earlier. The hook would be, look, you have to log in a lot of different places in order to figure out what's going on your network, and that's challenging. The body would be something along the lines of, actually here, we'll write this. And this is pro tip for those actually writing abstracts. Never write your abstract. Here we go. I'm just going to click. This is, by the way, Chris just dropped this link in the chat. There's a submit a talk. And then, make sure, yeah. And then there's the abstract there, or form for the abstract. So we'll actually go through and we'll submit a talk for that observability thing I was just talking about earlier. So I'm going through, I've got my session track here. This is an area that I have personal experience. And like I just mentioned, we're going to want to do as much as we can actually in another document, because sometimes, you might leave your computer for a bit, come back and find out your session's expired and your abstract is gone. That's a terrible experience. So we're going to go ahead and in our untitled document, and I'm actually going to start with the abstract before getting into the title. And the reason I do that is a lot of times you can build your title from your abstract. So here, for example, we say it's challenging having to many network devices to find the right logs to fix your network. So here we've, kind of presented, this is the issue, right? You don't want to have to log in to, dozens, hundreds, even like 10 or 15 devices. It's a lot of work to do that. Also, as you guys have questions, again, I encourage you to drop them in the chat. If I'm going too fast in one place, let me know. Now we've got our body, right? This is the meat. Like what do people, what are you going to cover? In this session, we will cover using OpenSearch to collect your logs centrally. And let's see, to collect your logs centrally and gain insights quicker. Find what is going on in your, I'm going to also increase the font, just realize it's probably not very visible. Network faster for quicker response times. That sounds fancy. And then finally, this actually There we go. Finally would be the wrap up. We're going to show you how to collect your logs from network devices. You'll walk away knowing how to into OpenSearch, gain insights, and respond faster. So this is just a sample, right? This is a short abstract, we'll say. I do recommend checking out the CFP and their guidelines. We say 700 characters max. There is actually another secret trick that you can use to writing an abstract, and that is ChatGPT. So for those who are not currently using ChatGPT or something along the lines, you can actually say, hey, ChatGPT, create an abstract for OpenSearchCon, a conference about OpenSearch, the Apache 2 licensed search engine, less than 700 characters, which I found that it doesn't really respect the 700 characters. And then you can describe what your talk will cover. And here, I was actually writing a talk for something different, but we'll say here is a sample abstract to base your abstract off of. And just like that, we'll take a look at what ChatGPT comes back with. I bet you guys weren't expecting to hear about ChatGPT today, were you? If you were, drop in the chat or no, better yet, if you were not, drop in the chat. There we go. Here we go. And sometimes it comes back with, a bit of fluff, right? So it's describes OpenSearchCon, then it says, yeah, I know it works really well. Yeah, join us to discover how OpenSearch can revolutionize your logging and analytics workflows. In this session, we'll delve into the benefits of centralizing log collection. So again, this is actually a pretty decent abstract. And then it does the finalizer. OpenSearchCon is your gateway to locking the full potential of OpenSearch. Here, we might replace OpenSearchCon and say, hey, this talk is, your gateway to unlocking your potential of OpenSearch and transforming your data analytics.
Hey, David.
So, yeah.
Do you want to try the GPT Plus, the GPT-4 version of it?
Oh, sure. That is actually a good call out. Let's try it. We'll copy this prompt. Actually, can I just change to GPT-4 in here? Probably not.
No,
there we go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, this is another thing that I've found with ChatGPT is it tends to have use very big words, and a lot of times actually that can be not great actually for an abstract. In abstracts, you want to keep it simple, and the reason is there are people from different geographies who maybe don't have English as a first language. So it's really important to make sure that you're using the simplest terms possible so that everyone can understand what's going to be going on in your talk. So this actually is a really good one. An efficient workflow. So yeah, we'll take this, we'll copy this abstract. Yeah, I know GPT-4 is pretty limited, but that's okay. So here we'll paste this in. If I was to actually submit this, I would do some edits on this myself. I might say, okay, dispersed search data. Well, I really want to talk about network logs. So I'd say something like dealing with dispersed network logs. And instead of dispersed, I might choose a more simple word like, let's say network logs that are all over the place often results in an inefficient workflow. So this is a great way to kind of go about your abstract, and you're kind of refining it as you go through. So we can take that, and actually the wonderful thing is we can tell GPT to create a title about this as well. Again, titles are going to be your big hook. And when you are creating a title, you want to make sure that you're properly describing what is going to happen and what people can expect out of your talk. So let's say create a title for the following abstract. We'll just say this. Try and keep it simple so you guys aren't just actually, you know what? We'll do this. We'll say create 10 sample titles. This is also a GPT hack that I saw recently. Create 10 different title suggestions. There we go. And again, GPT likes using big words. So what we would do is we could take one of these sample titles and then refine it into being a little bit more along the lines with what we're looking for. So for example, I would want people to know, right? I've said that I'm going to talk about network logs. Network logs should be somewhere in the title. So if elevate your efficiency, use OpenSearch for rapid network analysis. That's actually a pretty decent title. So we could take that, copy that in. And again, I would probably pair this if I was submitting this one today. And leveraging OpenSearch for rapid network log analysis, we'll say. Phenomenal. Then we've got our next part, which is our speaker bio. So after you create your abstract, you've got your title, what you're going to be talking about. Now you need to talk about why you are the right person for this talk, right? The audience, they may or may not know who you are. So they want to hear like, hey, why is, David, for example, the right person to stand up and give this talk? So a really great way to do this is to talk about, your experience, right? So whether you have experience, for me, I was working in network automation. So I had a lot of experience doing automated things across the network, and that would make it in, oh, excuse me, one moment. There we go. I would talk about, I had, 3.5 years as a network automation specialist, or you also talk in the third person. So I would say something along the lines of, David has 3.5 years as a network automation engineer and has done X, Y, and Z to improve network efficiency across his company, or has been teaching network automation classes, or this is another really good one that a lot of people can use, and I would strongly recommend, is actually being new to a certain field is really valuable experience. So say, for example, myself, I came into OpenSearch. I had never done, search engineering. So I had spent about a year looking into search and understanding how OpenSearch works at its core. And when I went to submit to Haystack this past year, I pointed out, look, I'm new to search, and that's why that's why I am giving this talk, is because I want to help others who are new to search get past some of the hurdles that I had coming into it, whether that's understanding new terms or things along those lines. So everyone has something that they come to bring, and this is a chance for you to talk about yourself and say, hey, this is what I bring to the table.
David, just to add to that, I think David raised two very important points there. Well, I mean, like throughout the conversation. First is the topics the topics can range drastically. That's one.
Yeah.
Second is, I think you guys, participants of CCI, have a unique perspective that nobody else has. In the world, nobody else has that perspective in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Not even members of OpenSearch.
Oh, certainly not. Actually, and that is one of the really interesting things is most of my contributions to OpenSearch tend to be towards documentation, but the developer experience, the learning new things in OpenSearch, you guys are the experts there, and you should share your experience because other people are looking at how to contribute, and other people might even be looking at CCI as an option, so talk about your experience and your experience is super valuable. So
Yeah. So one of my team members or I are going to be talking about CCI in general. However, each of the participants of CCI can pick an area that, whether it's the specific repo that you were interested in, whether it's the specific challenges you faced and were able to unlock, what is the demo you wanted to present or you want to present. It's going to be a variety, and the more content we can create around the opportunity for like contributors to get started with OpenSearch, the better. You have very high chances there.
yeah, that's a really good point.
Because one other thing is, oh, it looks like Max. So CCI is a college contributor initiative that launched in the beginning of March, lasted for 12 weeks, and included close to 500 participants. And that was an opportunity for folks who may be still students, maybe not be students yet already, and to get their feet wet in the open source. They received the mentorship for the 12 weeks, 2 hours per. So like they've received mentorship from the repo mentors, like live feedback, responses to the questions the participants had, a variety of perks, highly recommended. And that resulted in contributors being able to build up their portfolio, increase their knowledge base, as well as learn basically transfer skills, methodologies, processes of the industry.
Yeah, it's been hugely helpful, I think, just because there are I think there's a lot of learning that we've taken from it as well. There's great for the contributors as well. So no, we're super grateful for our CCI program. It's been phenomenal. And thank you all for also coming and, being willing to learn more about talking about your experience. It's huge. With that, we have talked pretty extensively about OpenSearch's CFP. There are a lot of other CFPs, though, that you guys might want to submit to, whether that is an open source summit, whether that is, another place that you're contributing. Maybe it's Ubuntu, maybe it's data analytics summit. Wherever you want to submit to, there are a lot of other questions that companies will ask. So we'll talk about some of those and talk about why they have them and what they're looking for out of these. So some of the really common questions are, have you given this talk before? Have you spoken publicly before? Those questions tend to be aligned on, can we expect you to write the talk that you have proposed, which, by the way, I didn't necessarily make this clear at the beginning. Most people don't have their presentation completely finished when they write their abstract. More often than not, the abstract is, done well in advance so that you're not writing presentations unnecessarily for conferences where maybe you didn't get accepted. So with that, though, your conference might want to know, like, hey, is this person going to be able to deliver this talk or speak publicly? And can we expect them to deliver? That's really what they're looking for, is will you follow through on what you've done? Likewise, they might ask for an outline for your talk. That outline can be, pretty vague. Some ask for more detailed outlines. And that's so that they can make sure, the talk also fits within the community, fits their goals for what they're looking for. So those are some other common CFP questions. OpenSearchCon has several. There we go. OpenSearchCon has several others. We ask you, why does this, I feel like it keeps shrinking. Which track you want to do. So we have 3 tracks. One is for search and everything in the search and search relevant space. There's one for analytics, observability, and security. these two tracks tend to be a lot more on the technical side of things, implementing search solutions or how search works in OpenSearch or how Lucene search works. Same with the analytics, observability, and security, like how those things work or how they work in OpenSearch. And then we also have the community track, which is a lot more of a high level look at, what goes into the OpenSearch community and other adjacent communities. This is a great place to submit, especially CCI talks, because you have a unique view on the OpenSearch community as you've been through this mentorship. Likewise, we also ask, have you given this presentation before and where? Information about you, bio, organization. You can just put NA if you're not currently working somewhere. And then also you might have a secondary speaker, right? So you might co-present this with someone. And that's also a really great way to do these presentations, especially it helps, if this is your first time, it's good having someone there to, go on the experience with you. So, and then also, we collect, do you identify as a part of an underrepresented group? Because we're looking to ensure that we have a diverse group at OpenSearchCon, right? We're not looking for what's my friend Diana coined a manel, which is a panel of, straight white men telling you about everything. We want to have a whole different grouping of people. Then we have some terms and conditions, and we have a travel assistance option for those who might need it. So with that, let's talk a little bit about standing out. Earlier, we talked about, reaching out to the organizers to ask like, hey, what talks do you need? That's a really great way to stand out because now the organizers are familiar with your name. They know you're very interested, and you've caught their attention. Additionally, you want to get your abstract in fairly early. Like a lot of times they will extend deadlines for these, but it's always better to get it in as soon as you can because that also pushes you up on the review panel. So for OpenSearchCon, each of the tracks has a set of reviewers who are completely anonymous. And the sooner, the higher up you show in the process, the quicker they will review yours, So that's always a great way to do it. And then look at presentations that have been given previously. For most conferences, you can go online and find like YouTube videos from previous conferences, and you could say, hey, look, what sort of talks have been done before? And would they be interested in my talk? Then the last thing is, this is probably the hardest part about submitting talks, is not every talk is accepted. So for those who don't know, Marino is a large personality in the, what is that called? He works on ISO service meshes pretty extensively. And he talks about, Kubernetes and deployments of microservices there. And his CFP acceptance rate is like 28%. And that means out of, every 4 CFPs he submits, only one of them will get accepted. And that's pretty typical across the industry. Mine actually might be a little bit lower than that. I'm working on refining my CFP skills, but not every talk is accepted and it's not personal. Sometimes the talk may not just fit with that conference. So what I recommend to people is if you've done work to create an abstract and the talk wasn't accepted, you can always reach out and ask if they have feedback, or you can also submit it to another conference. For example, I had one that was about logging in Python, and it didn't get accepted to PyCon US, but it got accepted to FOSDEM. So that's a really great way to reuse some of the work that you've done. And don't feel discouraged. We all have conference talks that don't get accepted. And, you just take that and you go with it. You try and refine it, make it a little different. Say maybe, is there something else I could do here to make it stand out a little better next time? With that, that is actually the end of the content that I have prepared. I'd love to hear what questions you guys have as you're thinking about submitting CFPs, as you are thinking about abstracts or what to write. What do you guys got for me? I mean, or maybe this was just the greatest presentation ever, and I actually covered the entire topic. But yeah.
Oh, there was a question in the
Oh,
chat.
yeah. I see it. There it is. Yeah. So you don't need the whole presentation ready right now. That's exactly right. Normally, yeah, for OpenSearch, actually, for most conferences, the presentation isn't actually due until just a few days before the conference, right? So you have a lot of time to be able to create your presentation. And actually, this is a good point. There is a process, right? So we accept all these presentations, then the presentation date closes, and that's when we'll go into a review period. It's about 2 weeks for OpenSearchCon, where we'll send the presentations to our reviewers. They rate them on a 1 to 5 scale for several different key areas. Then we'll evaluate all of the sessions that they rated and which ones came to the top, making sure to account for things like ensuring we have a diverse group of people there. Then, after that is done, if your talk has been accepted, we'll email you. This is about 3 weeks after this CFP. We'll email you and let you know that your talk has been accepted, or we're not going to be moving forward with your talk. After we let you know that your talk was accepted, we'll ask for what is it called? We will ask for response saying that yes, you're still interested and able to come. Oh, wow, everyone has really great questions. So after all of this is done, we'll get to the end. And then once you've accepted, said, yes, I'm still willing to do this talk, we'll ask you to maybe get a photo in for your bio for the website. And then at the very end, we'll ask for your presentations a couple days before OpenSearchCon. Coming back through those questions real quick, I'm going to try and hit them in order. Does your profile matter a lot in evaluating CFPs, and are students somehow disadvantaged compared to industry veterans? No. So this, I cannot stress this enough, actually. Almost all of the conferences I go to, about, I'd say anywhere between 15 to 20% of the people speaking might be students, actually. Talking about their experiences, whether it is, there's one individual who I remember in particular from DevRelCon Yokohama, who talked very extensively about how students need to understand how to interact with, these open source communities. And his experience was super valuable at that conference. So what I recommend is just talk about what makes you special in particular, like whether that is that you have this perspective as a new person. But no, so students are not disadvantaged. Just make sure that you relate your experience as a student back to your talk. There was a question, does it have to be a 30-minute talk? So for OpenSearchCon, it does. A 30-minute talk, though, often can look more like a 20-minute talk. And the reason for that is, you might have 5 minutes in the beginning where, minute or so to get set up. And then, once you're set up, you do your introduction. Introduction might last a minute and a half. Then some background on the presentation, and then you have 20 minutes. And then you do 5 to 10 minutes for questions at the end. So a 20-minute talk or a 30-minute talk doesn't necessarily have to take up all of 30 minutes, but we do recommend testing it a little bit beforehand to make sure you're at least fairly close considering those other things. Max, you asked if it is reasonable to submit multiple talks, and I'd say yes, actually. Going back to that other slide, like for conferences that I really want to get accepted to, I almost always submit 2 or 3 talks. For OpenSearchCon, we'll accept as many talks as you want to submit, but you can only be accepted in up to 1 talk in 2 different tracks. The likelihood of that happening is actually fairly low. We have a very large set of people in all the different tracks, but I would absolutely recommend, if you have a couple different ideas, submit them all, and then we let the reviewers do their business. Let's see. So the next question was, can we give some examples of presentations for the category of community? Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great ones that, oh gosh, This is going to be really hard to because I've seen the presentations for the community talks and I don't want to give away the presentations for the community talks. So I'll give one that is kind of adjacent, actually, that Nate and I did a little bit back. So Nate and I in particular, Nate is a fellow developer advocate working on OpenSearch at AWS. And he and I did this talk on observing the community. So OpenSearch community is huge. We have a little over 100 repositories. People are on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So we built a program that collected data from all of these sources, dropped it into OpenSearch so that we could have like a weekly view of like what is going on in the community. And that was huge, right? And so we went and we actually talked about this, like, hey, this is how we, gained insights from the OpenSearch community. Or another great one might be, about diversity. So, something along the lines of like, hey, this is what I think OpenSearch or some how you can get diversity into your community. These are the 3 things or the 10 things that you can do to create a inclusive environment that people feel comfortable in. That's really another great one about community. Yeah, so we accept a wide range of things, whether that is just your observations or how to make it easier for people to contribute as a first-time contributor. That would be another huge one. So there's a lot that community covers. I don't want to describe it as a bucket for just dumping presentations, but I feel like there's a whole lot that can fit in there. And it's outside of the realm of OpenSearch even. So if you have stories that relate to OpenSearch and put them in community, that's phenomenal. But you can talk about things even beyond that. And I would recommend it. Another question, would it be good plus if we have experience which is particularly not related to IT? Actually, that is a really great place to have a talk. Now, of course, you're going to want to relate it back somehow. But an example, I had just recently given or submitted an abstract where I gave examples of something that had happened in my personal life. Actually, this is another one. There was a girl, Liza, who formerly worked as an advocate for Ivan, and she gave a talk on how to find food with strange ingredients in OpenSearch. And Chris, do you remember what 2 foods it was? It was something like chocolate and beans or something very strange.
It was fantastic. It was like chocolate and some sort of fruit or
Uh,
weird vegetable.
it was a
It was
vegetable. I don't remember what it
both.
was, but
Yeah.
and again, that kind of came outside like tech people probably aren't going to be talking about the intersection of different vegetables in a search query, but it related very healthily to OpenSearch. So she used her experience of looking for these strange combinations and showed how to do that in OpenSearch. So definitely share that experience.
And to that point, it brought in a little bit of humor, which really goes a
Yeah.
long way in these talks. When you can get up there and be genuinely fun and entertaining, that really goes a long way when you're giving your talk.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, So, Raman, also sorry if I mispronounce your names, y'all. I'm working as hard as I can. What are the specific criteria for candidates? Is it more about the content of the talk or the speaker's background? So there is, it is, I would say primarily about the talk, but if you don't have the background to give the talk, that will be considered. So say, for example, if you were talking about deploying a 1,000 node OpenSearch cluster and you had never actually worked on a 1,000 node OpenSearch cluster, that would probably throw up a red flag for a lot of people. But so long as you have done something related to that talk, or yeah, as long as your experience seems to relate well with the talk, it'll have a very strong chance. So actually, there we go. Someone just dropped in from CCI to maintainer, OpenSearch JS client rewrite from JavaScript to TypeScript. That sounds really good. The one thing that I would make a recommendation on is that is a pretty lengthy title. So most people, when they read titles, they get about the first 2 or 3 words, to the last 3 or 4 words. And a lot of times the middle information can be missed. So what I would look at is say, what is the primary goal of your presentation? Is it about the journey from CCI to maintainer? Or is it about, rewriting? And it can be about either actually and be just as valid. So whether you tell in that story of rewriting from JavaScript to TypeScript, how those contributions ended up leading you to be a maintainer, that'd be super. And also, huge shout out for actually dropping that in the chat. That took a lot, I'm sure. And yeah, that is a super cool talk. And I'm sure a lot of people, oh gosh, that question is,
I would love to hear this talk. I would love
I
just a little note on the CCI part of it. Maybe clearly define what that is, because the audience reading that
might not know.
might not be aware of exactly what CCI is, but maybe from college program to maintainer or something more identifiable to the audience. And then you can go into the technical part of CCI or the details of CCI in the talk itself.
Yeah.
Or
That's actually, oh, go ahead.
Or you could just call it from never contributing to open source to becoming a maintainer or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's a great one, Timur.
It is. And also how you word it changes maybe which track you might want to put it in. So if you focus on the, path from college contributor to maintainer, that might fit really well under community. Actually, and the other thing is, if it is a more technical talk, we don't necessarily have great fit right now for, between search, observability, and analytics, which that would fit into. So feel free to submit it to, if it's very technical, I'd say probably observability. If it is a little less technical and more about the journey in community. And if the reviewers find this and they're like, I'm not sure it belongs here, I think it belongs over here, we'll reroute talks. So don't feel too much pressure submitting it to the right track. We will put you in the track that we think makes the most sense for the talk that you've written. These are some super questions. You guys are actually like really thinking about it. I appreciate it because it makes me feel like, we're actually learning something here, which is great.
And
Any other questions?
David and Chris, you guys doing an amazing job by demystifying the process, making it clear that it's actually pretty straightforward and simple, providing the examples, educating the folks on like just being willing to try, being willing to submit, being willing to refine it a bit, but then submit again. Thank you, David, Chris. I appreciate the help here.
Absolutely. And if you guys have questions or comments as you are going through this process, let's stop sharing real quick. I'm going to drop, for those who don't know, we have a OpenSearch Slack. Let me pull up the link to that. I am in there as well as Chris, and we have a DevRel channel. And if you would like to get feedback on your presentation, please feel free to put it into the DevRel channel. Thank you, Chris. Chris is always so much faster than I am with these things. I don't know how he does it. I think he just has them all in his head.
You're the one talking. I can do the We're a good team, David.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Timur, to your point, even if you talk about how it changed your life, I would put that into the community channel because that's a really great place where it doesn't necessarily have to be, OpenSearch specific, but it can talk more about the impact of, open source and community on your life. So that's a really great one. But yeah, so feel free to drop in the DevRel channel if you have a title that you're working on, or if you have thoughts. Actually, correction, I'm gonna direct you to me personally, because if you put it in the DevRel channel, one of the reviewers might see it, and I'd probably prefer that not to happen. So I'll drop my link into the chat real quick, which normally I have a scan code, but today I am falling behind. Wow, how do I find my own profile in Slack? Okay, Well, apparently I'm just in Slack as David Tippett. So you can find me there, or I'm at DTAIVPP on Twitter. So thank you all.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, folks, for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
You, everyone.
If you do have, if you do
Looking
have
forward-
questions, I can hang out for a
Looking forward
couple
to
minutes.
Proposals and submissions.
Yeah.
Please make sure
Yeah.
to submit the proposals.
Absolutely. Thanks all. It's also just reminded me that I need to make my other submission to OpenSearchCon.